Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So, today we're playing with the new E-Flite SR-71 Blackbird. I'm doing some testing. I haven't flown the airplane yet, but I love to modify stuff and tinker and experiment. So, what I've done here is I've kind of looked over the whole design, more specifically the propulsion aspect of this model. It's all pretty good. I like how they use the so on the real SR-71, these are a little farther back, and these actually pull air in around the exhaust. They're a thrust augmenter vent, basically. Anyways, I think it's cool that they use those as the cheater holes and kept a scale spike on the nose or on the front, which is really, really cool. I mean, the spike is obviously a huge part of the looks of the SR-71. So, anyways, although it seems to work pretty well based on videos I've seen of it flying, I thought, well, maybe there's ways to improve it. So, first step I did, and I did some pretty crude testing just to kind of verify some of this stuff. So, there's my scale. Obviously, pushed the nose up against it, ran it up on a fresh pack. Every time I did a test, I had the battery all the way charged up. The first test I did was I actually increased the size of the cheater holes on the bottom. The reason I did that was because no one's ever going to see it, and there's a bunch of other stuff on the bottom too. It's, not scale, so whatever. Obviously, I have to paint the foam that's exposed now, but basically you can see, so those vertical lines along those grids are where the old holes were, and I've basically doubled the size of that opening. And so I did my thrust test, and I have it all written down over here. I didn't gain a whole lot, honestly. I saw maybe 5 to 6 gram increase on thrust, which not a whole lot, but it is some change. It's a improvement, even though it's slight. And again, every time we did this test, there's obviously a ton of variables here. These are just grain of salt measurements, just kind of like if I see improvement, then that's good. Like I'm not going to take these numbers as scripture. So anyways, so I've increased those. It wasn't a huge increase in thrust, which tells me that the amount of air it's getting between the front and these cheater holes is pretty much enough air. So this might have helped slightly, but not a whole lot, which not a huge deal. I don't think I took away from the looks of the model. Once I paint that white foam black, you're not really going to notice them. A couple other things I did was you see some little bare spots in here. There's like some casting flash and some stuff that kind of sticks up in the tailpipe. I took that out. I don't think it really changed anything. But what I decided to do was make some tailpipe extensions. And they're not only extensions, but they also are tapered. So on a ducted fan, and in this case, so let's say we had a fan and it was all by itself mounted on top of a model with no tailpipe. That would work great. There's ways you can increase the efflux speed of the air coming out. You would make a tailpipe, right? In this case, what we have here is an extension of the fan to the back of the model here, but it's the same size as the fan. So in other words, this opening is not neck down at all. So it's basically 40 millimeters, or the inside diameter of the fan. So, which is fine, but you have to take into account the area that the motor and the prop or the impeller hub takes up in this area. That's called the fan sweep area. So basically what's happening here is there's a certain amount of air coming from the fan, and what's happening is as that air gets past the motor, it comes into this back area here, and while it's very short, which is good, basically what's happening is the area is changing from the area around the fan and the motor to the area behind it, which is now increased by the amount of the size of the motor. So for numbers, if you had a 40 millimeter fan with a 40 millimeter exit, like let's say you had a long tailpipe and I had a 40 millimeter exit, your fan sweep, your area of that 40 millimeter exit is larger than the area that's actually coming through the fan. So what's happening is the air is slowing down as it comes out the back, because you need to keep the area consistent so it keeps the speed of the air as consistent as possible. Or, and like in most cases, we actually reduce the size of the tailpipe, which while that does reduce thrust, it increases the speed of the air coming out of the tailpipe. So like on this X1, it's an 80 millimeter fan. I have about a 70 millimeter exit, which is just short of 100% of the actual area of the fan. So I've basically tried to keep it consistent as possible, thrust and speed of the air. There's some airplanes, let's see, I don't have one in here right now that I changed too much. On my old jet hanger Sabre, I had a exit that was about 70% of the area of the fan. Now that had a very high E-Flux speed, so that's the speed of the air coming out of the back, and that model went 160 miles an hour flat and level with the 90 millimeter EDF, so very fast. So and when you're considering what's optimal for each airplane, this airplane likes to fly fast. You're not necessarily doing high alpha transitions into vertical climbs, right? So you're not looking for maximum static thrust. You're not going to take it off from grass, so you don't need maximum static thrust. Like the F-16, you want a good amount of static thrust for doing low speed maneuvers and having that grunt and the push to accelerate the model from a low speed. But if you're not concerned with that, if you're more concerned with higher speed flying, so something like this where it's much happier at a higher speed, you're going to want to tune your EDF system so that you have a better high-speed performance. And actually what you'll notice a lot of times is your vertical will actually increase even though you've lost static thrust, because you have more dynamic thrust. So in other words, in the air, you have more push, let's just call it more thrust, than you would with a higher static thrust, lower E-Flux speed setup. So I measured the E-Flux with this. Let me set this down real quick. I have this old, really cool pitot tube setup that my friend Brett Becker gave me forever ago. And this is meant to be mounted on a model, and it's meant to give you the airspeed of the model. So you have a pitot tube and a static port. So this works just like a real pitot system on a real plane. But basically you're meant to mount this in a wing or a tail of a plane, and it has this little light on top. And so this measures whatever the maximum speed that it saw, it measures that, and then it saves it until you come back after the flight. You sweep your finger over this sensor light a couple of times, and then it flashes off the actual speed to you. So I measured, and again, I did this multiple times, and when you move it, if it's not in the exact same spot, it's going to be different. So I kind of move it all around. The area, trying to find the maximum speed. Just because if you put it in one spot, it might not read exactly the same as the next time you try it, because you might not have it in the same exact spot. So again, this is all just, it's not science here. Like, I'm not trying to, give you one tiny little number and tell you that's exactly what it is. I'm just using this as a frame of reference. So I measured between 99 and the best I saw was 109. I'm sorry, let me go back. So I measured it totally stock, so with no changes at all, stock, and it was 534 grams of thrust, 99 miles an hour was the best one I saw on the speed. And then I did the cheater hole mod, and I saw between 538 and 540 grams of thrust. So 5-6 grams of thrust, which, hey, on a model this small, it's not nothing. And the E-Flux actually jumped to 109, so that was a 10 mile an hour increase, which I thought was interesting, given that the thrust didn't increase that much. But again, we're using this super crude setup here, so for all I know, it was rolling on a different spot in the ground, and that's what changed it. I would actually go far more off of what this is telling me versus pushing against that scale, because there's a lot of different variables that come into play when you're doing that drag on the wheels. Did the wheel have a flat spot on it? You know, stuff like that. So we did see an increase of roughly 10 miles an hour just doing the cheater hole mod. Then I did the tailpipes. So these are meant to go in the exhaust right at the back of the motor, basically. They do stick out about 1/4 of an inch. So, and once I paint them black, you're not really going to notice. Again, it's, you know, it's a cool model. It's a fun, I'll call it fun scale, because it's not perfectly scale, but it's a pretty scale model. It looks cool, but something like this sticking out the back a little tiny bit isn't going to throw off the looks of the model. But the best number I saw with the tailpipes on it was 128 miles an hour. So that is another 10, 11, 12 mile an hour increase over not having these. So what does that mean? So let's just say we picked up 20 miles an hour E-Flux between the cheater hole mod and the tailpipe mod. 20 miles an hour, that's a 20% increase in E-Flux. That's actually pretty substantial. What does that translate to in airspeed? Does that mean the airplane is going to go 20 miles an hour faster? No, that's not what it means. But it will, or it should, increase. Theoretically, let's say this thing goes 80 miles an hour. Maybe now it goes 85 or maybe even 90. So that's a jump, and it's something you're probably going to notice as it's flying. So I'm excited to fly the airplane, and I'll probably fly it the way it is without the tailpipes first, and then come back later and add these in, just so I can get a back-to-back comparison. Even though I do have some data to go off of now, I would like to fly it first and then see what it is. Obviously, I can't, you know, put back the cheater holes the way they were before. But I am pretty excited about this model. It's very neat. There have been some mixed reviews online as far as flying qualities and stuff go. But look, guys, this is an SR-71, and it's a small one. This is a very small model. So, no, it's not going to fly like an amazing turbine-powered 12-foot-long SR-71 model. You know, it's just not. But I believe for the size, for the price, for the packaging, and all that, I'd say based on the videos I've seen, it flies pretty good. It's pretty cool. I mean, look at it. This thing looks awesome. Super detailed. Yeah, the verticals are definitely oversized, but again, that's because, you know, this airplane lacks stability in a scale form. So they had to do that basically to make it fly nicer. So I am toying with the idea of making ventral fins like the A12 had, just to add some more stability. And I'm considering, if those work well, actually reducing the size of the verticals so it looks a little bit nicer. I have the red ones, and what I might do is I might modify those, make them a little bit smaller for better looks. And if it flies okay with them, then maybe I'll paint them black and put decals on them and stuff. But anyways, that's enough blabbing from me. I'm excited to go out and fly this thing, hopefully very soon. It's pretty windy today, but I consider going to the park to fly it with the gear off of it. But anyways, super stoked. Yeah, hope you guys liked the video, and I'll be sure to do another video once we have some conclusions as far as testing goes, as far as flight testing goes, with these modifications. So hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. And I forgot to mention the thrust with the pipes. So you will exchange static thrust for E-Flux. That's just math. It's science. So the best I saw was 516 static thrust with the tailpipes on it. That is a reduction in static thrust, yes, but I would be willing to put money on it that it actually performs better with the tailpipes and the higher E-Flux than it does with more static thrust and less E-Flux. So anyways, forgot to mention that.